So we decided to start here for today's purpose because we want to give you the student view and the teacher view of Nearpod. So this is what it looks like once you start building your library. So here's for today's PD, we're going to do quick checks, Los Lunas schools. So and we chose to start here because this question always comes up. How do I get started, or how do I put it in presentation mode? So you would click here, live participation plus Zoom. I have heard that if you do just live participation, some of the features will not work. So you want to make sure that you click live participation plus Zoom if you're on Zoom. So I'm going to go ahead and click that now. And now what it's doing is it's projecting a link and a code. For today's purpose, we will not be using the actual code because we're not going to use the app. What we had found is a lot easier if you click on the link right here and then you click copy. Did you see how I click link? It's this little chain here. And then I'm going to click copy. And now I'm going to go to Zoom and I'm going to drop that link in the chat. And now if everyone can click on the link in the chat, if you're on an iPad, it's going to prompt you to continue to website, and then you'll put your name in. If you're on the MacBook, you will just put in your name. I'm getting on my iPad as well. And that's something that we've really suggested you to do with your students. I mean, you could toggle between the two screens on your MacBook, but sometimes the iPad is so much more delayed, and it's kind of a constant reminder that we need to slow down because for me, sometimes I'm still loading and I notice everyone else who's on the MacBook is still going.
Just a pro tip. I've tried Nearpod before, and for some reason, the kids freak out at the optional name option. They see enter optional name. They're like, what do I put there? This looks great. I don't know why.
I've had that problem too. They don't know what to do. They'll put their middle name. They'll put a password around the password. They'll put their lunch number. So yeah, I've had that happen too.
And maybe at the beginning, I guess we'll just have to tell them, just put your name. Don't worry about the optional feature.
Yeah, so if anyone else has pro tips as we're going along, I am very open to those.
Right, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So as we know, quick checks are great for getting student data to guide our tier 1 instruction and for our tier 2 and tier 3 intervention. So anytime we collect that data, it could also be used for stat documentation. So if you're using a tool remotely, like Nearpod or any of the other ones that we're going to show you here today, you could download a PDF file, you could take a screenshot, or sometimes a tool offers reports like Nearpod. We're going to show you today how it offers certain reports that will help you gather evidence that you need to better support your scholars.
Quick checks, what are they? Well, they're short assessments. They can be a single question. They're often done daily, and they help us to check in to see and get students feedback on if they're understanding what we're teaching, so that it's instant data to help guide our day-to-day instruction. We can identify misconceptions that students have, and we can spend like the first 5 minutes of the next day's lesson clarifying that, or we can correct it before the end of the day, and that way they don't continue to practice a skill incorrectly. They can be common formative assessments if the team agrees on the same problem or the same question to give their students. So there's many types of quick checks. We have a few listed here. These aren't all of the types that you can give, and there's many different tools. As a district, we're using Canvas. Several teachers have used whiteboard.chat, the Google Suite. Teachers have used Forms, Google Docs, Padlet, and today we're going to show some of those, and then we're also featuring many of the options that you can do within Nearpod. But there's different ways that we can give quick checks. The thing to keep in mind when we're giving them is that we have to decide which one works best for our class and what kind of data are we looking for. If we just want to know if they got the concept, then you can use quizzes in Canvas. If we want to know and have a conversation about their work and analyze their work, you might want to use a different tool like whiteboard.chat or the Draw It here in Nearpod.
All right. So basically, a Nearpod, it allows you to create lessons in sequence while embedding quick checks along the way, and it generates that data for you. I showed you how to use it. You can drop the link in the chat. You could use the code on the iPad, but we found the most easiest is literally just dropping that link in the chat. So once the students are on Nearpod, you can monitor their responses. So for today, we're going to make it interactive. And we chose different features on here or different activities for us to play with that can be utilized as quick checks. But there is so much more on here that you could use, but we just are limited on time today. And another thing too, we don't want you to get rid of other tools that you're using. We'll show you today how you can kind of embed them in Nearpod and continue to use everything else that you're still using. Someone has their hand up? Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, your name doesn't show.
No, I'm sorry. I have no clue Nearpod at all. Like, I never heard of it. So, I know you were saying stuff. How do we like get to Nearpod? Like, do we download an app? Like, do we? I'm sorry, I have no idea.
No, Judith, that's good. So you'll basically go to the website and you can just click, I think it's like nearpod.com, and if you put it in your web browser, it'll come right up. You'll get a free account, but once you register, it's free. The only downfall is you're going to be a little bit limited on space, but you'll have enough to create several lessons. You just got to delete them as you go, unfortunately, until we get our membership. So we are aware of stuff like that. So we've had to be creative, and Jackie has a code, I have a code, so we're all over the place just sharing. So, and to Judith too, we can help you more with it too, and you'll get to see today kind of how it works and kind of operates with many different tools.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is one of the first tools that we have here, and this is a poll. And we're going to ask you to select what is your favorite season. And when you submit, it's going to tell the students, got it, your answer's been submitted. If you come back to the Zoom screen, you can see what it looks like on the teacher's end. So your list of students is there, and then it'll show you what answer they gave to the poll. So if you use this as a quick check, then you can see their answers, and then as a teacher, you can share the poll, the information. So when you share the information, it shows up as a pie chart in the student screen with their answer below, and the pie chart will give the percentage of students that answered. It also will tell you who hasn't answered, and when you're looking as a teacher, then you can say, hey, I need you to answer, and it kind of gives some of that accountability and participation, but it never reveals the student's name. So you could have a conversation about the answers that the students gave, why they gave that answer, and just have some of that feedback.
So the next one is a multiple choice question. So basically here you could ask any question, and then you put in your options for A, B, C, or D. So we asked a question here today: which month has the least amount of days? If you could select a month. And here you can see how you could utilize this with journeys, with envisions, where you could put a math problem and then have the different options, comprehension questions. So, okay, now you can kind of see who's answered. And the good thing is we had talked about this. Another thing is, like, when you're teaching a lesson, you can also see who hasn't answered. So then you could have those discussions with your students, like during the lesson, and say, I see that you're not on. Can you please answer the question? Just to make sure that everyone's participating. So same thing as Jackie said. So you can click the share, and now it will push through a pie graph, and it'll show you which ones are correct, incorrect, no answer. And then at the bottom of your screen, do you notice how it shows you my answer? So it kind of shows you what you selected and kind of compared to the whole class. Well, I'm going to drop the link in the chat again, but if you guys can answer this one, this is an open-ended question. What is your favorite tool to give a quick check?
Quick question. So if you were in a classroom setting, do you recommend just not screen sharing in Zoom and then having them flip back and forth, or dual screen? How would you?
If they're on their iPad, I don't, they're not really given the opportunity to come back unless they double click the home button and sorry, they double click the home button and come back to Zoom. Do you see what I'm saying? Or because Nearpod kind of just takes over your screen. Once I click this blue arrow, it will take over your student's screen on the iPad. But you as a teacher, you may want to toggle back and forth just so, because that's what I'm doing even for today. I want to see the participant view and I want to see the teacher view.
The other thing is that until we get our paid version, as the teacher, when we get to the, you're going to see the draw in a little while, you can't annotate unless you're either using, you sign in as a student and you project your iPad, or if you pull up and share your screen with the teacher view in order to annotate and mark on it. So it just kind of depends how you want to do that with, you know, writing and demonstrating for the students until we get the paid version.
Some of my students have had issues also, and for some, it's really hard to do Zoom and Nearpod with their internet connection. So those are some of the issues I've run into also. So unfortunately, sometimes they are not active participants, which is really unfortunate. It works much better in small group, I found. So that's
And
something.
maybe when we get the paid version, I mean, who knows, maybe there's some features on there that will allow, I know that the minute I became a gold member, it increased the number of participants. It had a ton of different features. So maybe that's something that's holding us up too. We'll have to see when we get it.
Also, I have a quick thing to add, and I'm just kind of curious if, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the features that I've noticed in using Nearpod, I have these random kids, and they're not students of mine putting names, but they're really weird random kids. And one day I had an open-ended question, what's on your mind? And this random kid wrote boobies.
Oh my God.
And I've actually heard of that, Suzanne. I heard of that from another teacher saying that they can come in. But the good thing here is on Nearpod right now, if you had an open-ended question, you as a teacher can choose to share that. So if a child wrote that, then you, at least it gives you here the opportunity to not share that, because that's kind of crazy. But I have not figured out what is going on with that. And that's a question that we're going to have to write and ask Nearpod. All right, and here you guys can do your favorite. So here again, if you have those issues, I wouldn't share it. But here, so like, for example, I'm gonna share Suzanne's. And here you could basically do your favorite no or your favorite wrong answer. And that's kind of where the teacher displays the student work without the name. So students can talk about basically about what the student did right, but then they can identify the mistake and come up with the solution on how to fix it. So right now I chose to share Suzanne's work sample. So on your screen, everyone should see her answer, but without her name. Do you see? So that's kind of a good feature, and that would eliminate some of those kiddos coming in, or I don't know, who, not kids. I mean, who knows who those people are coming in. But here you have control as a teacher on what you can share or not share to your class.
This next feature is fill in the blanks. And with the fill in the blanks, the teacher, to set it up, the teacher types in everything as it were. So you don't create the blanks until after, and then you select which words you want to become the word bank, and it'll generate the word bank for you. And this is a really nice feature if you want to do true or false. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow you to put incorrect answers or extra words unless you type them in. But you type everything in first, and then when the students submit, it tells them how many out of the total they got correct. And on the teacher side, it'll let you see the entire answer where the blanks are, and then who has answered and how much out of the total they got correct.
All right, so the next one is probably the newest and the most favorite feature. What I've noticed is the Draw It feature on Nearpod. So here you could basically take a screenshot of something and upload it to the Draw It feature, and then the students each get their own board. It's very similar to whiteboard.chat, but it has a little bit less features. Well, a lot less actually, because it doesn't have like the manipulatives, but it's pretty simple and user friendly. So teachers are liking that as well. So right now you can see that I'm awaiting everyone to get on it. I like that it kind of shows you and slowly showing as your participants are clicking on their board. So here, basically you could, I've heard, well, Nearpod saves it, but I've heard of a teacher saying that sometimes she's had issues with that. So she takes a screenshot to make sure for sure that she has the work samples. Or you could take your anecdotal notes here and kind of mark the progress of how the students are doing as well. So you can kind of see everyone's getting on. I'm going to give you a second so that way you can play with some of the tools. And Josie, she already submitted, so it turned green where she submitted. Michelle submitted, and it's showing me in real time how my students are working. If you're not at this point, if you can toggle but come back to Zoom just so you can see how it looks on the teacher's end, because this is probably one of the coolest features on here. You're able to see all your students working. So the next one is this one is a video feature. So if you can come to Zoom really quick again, this is a really cool feature here that Nearpod offers. So it gives you this option. This is a video. How should I play it? It says teacher plays it. Video plays on the teacher's device and questions appear on the students' devices. So you would have everyone come back to Zoom, but they're still going to get the quick checks on their iPad. Or the student plays it and they watch the video and answer the questions at their own pace. So this is a really cool option. For today, I'm going to click teacher plays it and continue. And now you all can see the video, but I'm not going to play the whole video. I'm going to jump way over here. And we're going to see these blue dots are where Jackie and I chose to embed a quick check. So that's just a quick question on the content we're learning.
1. So on to number 2, where we have 2/5. So.
And then this question should come up on your end. So it gives you so many different, on Nearpod, it offers so many different question features, the open-ended, the multiple choice for you to answer or embed into your video. And if you notice on the students on your iPad right now, or on my iPad, it's saying eyes up front, the video will play on your teacher's screen. So it's also telling me because I selected that option here. All right. So, and if you were to add in the Envisions video, we did find that all you have to do is copy the link from the video and you could embed it into the web content. And then you just have to be logged into Envisions though for it to work. So just log into Envisions prior to starting your Nearpod. And when you click on the link, it should work. Most of the time it has worked for us. And the next one is whiteboard.chat. So with Nearpod, whiteboard.chat, we know that it's another tool, right, that allows you to watch your students working in real time. You could download all the student work into one PDF file. This one has tons of different features that you could use. It has manipulatives for math. I mean, it has so much on here. The cool thing is if you're using whiteboard.chat and that's your favorite, you don't have to get rid of it. Nearpod actually allows you to embed a link. So here I embedded a link for whiteboard.chat. And if you click on that link, it should take you to a math problem that I had in whiteboard.chat. So if everyone clicks on that, it's going to open up whiteboard.chat, and I'm doing it on my iPad as well. Sometimes it takes a second. So was everyone able to get in? Okay. So here you basically don't have to get rid of it. Just, I mean, if you want to continue using it, you can feel free to continue to use it. It allows you to embed any link. The cool thing is now you're in a whole different tool, right? So your kids are in whiteboard. So now when I click, if you come to my end to Zoom, if I click this blue arrow, Nearpod's going to take over. It's not going to allow your students to stay in whiteboard.chat no more. So that kind of helps with the transition time. It helps with kids asking questions. Teacher, where are you? How do I get there? So right now I'm going to click the blue arrow, and that should take everyone out of whiteboard.chat and straight to this Google Forms slide. Did that happen for everyone? So can you see how that kind of would help? So it helps with the transitions and with the kids being lost in their iPad. Any questions on that?
It also works with Google. So if you want to insert a Google form, or if you create a presentation on Google Slides, it's really easy to embed that into Nearpod. Google Forms allows you to create a quick check where you can add multiple choice questions, a paragraph response, short answer questions. If your students aren't using Google Classroom, or they're not logged in with their Google Google email login that they have, we suggest that you add a short answer question where the students add their names. Otherwise, the responses will be anonymous. What's nice is that Google Forms will allow you, the students can answer, and then you can go back and it'll create an Excel spreadsheet with results for you to go into and look at later. To get to Google Forms, when you go to google.com and you log in, the grid that's next to your picture or your name, you click on that, and then you scroll down until you see the purple paper with the bullet points, and that's Google Forms. And once you create the Google Forms, there is a setting that gives you the option to make a quiz. And in that setting, you can lock students into the quiz so they can't go into other applications while they're taking that. Once you copy that link and put it into Nearpod, it will actually embed the Google form into Nearpod. So we have an example here for you. And this is actually the Google form. So when we put it into Nearpod, the Google form was right there. So the students didn't have to click on an additional link to go there. It's right there for them to answer. And then once they submit it, you can go back into your Google Forms and see their answers and use that data.
All right, the next one is markup in Canvas, which I know everyone's pretty much familiar with, where you can upload a quick check, and then you upload it to Canvas, the students download it, they use a markup tool, and then they re-upload their work back to Canvas. So it's just another way just to get student work.
We've talked about how technology sometimes can be an issue, especially if students are having a poor connection. And usually it's just a couple of students in the class. So if you're using something like Nearpod, or you're using something like whiteboard.chat, if you have a student that isn't able to connect, or their internet's having issues, you can always have them go into notes on iPad. And what's nice about it is it's already there on the iPad. It's available, readily accessible. You could project, screen share what you want them to answer. They can use their finger or stylus to do their work, and then they can send a copy, take a picture, upload it into Canvas, and share it with you. So that way they're still able to participate even if their connection is poor.
Another one is a whiteboard in Zoom, which is very common as well. But you can basically, if you're in small group, you can divide the board up into 4 sections and put the student's name and give them a problem that's focused on the same skill, but a different problem, because here they can see each other's work. So this is just another great way. And then after, you could take a screenshot or take anecdotal notes just to help you keep record of how the students are progressing.
We wanted to explain how you can get reports in Nearpod. So if you use any of the Nearpod features, like we showed, the draw it, the poll, the quiz, open-ended question, if you use any of these features, you can go back into Nearpod and get those results and answers. So the first page Teresa showed at the beginning of this is the what shows up for your login screen. And on the left-hand side under my library are reports, and you can choose, when you click on that, you'll choose the presentation that you want to look at, and then it'll give the summary, an overall summary, which is the picture you see here. But you can go across and you can click on specific reports. So if you wanted to click and see the reports from the quiz or the reports from the poll, you can click on those and see independent reports. At the top, there's a download button. You can download the whole class, the data for the whole class, and that's session view, or you can download just one student. So if you need data for a student that's in SAT, you can just click on that student's information. It'll give you the graph for that student and their information. And then you can save the work as a PDF. We suggest that if you're getting ready until we get the paid version where we have more storage space, if you are getting ready to delete a presentation, you might want to download your reports for a PDF so you still have that data. Because once you download it, now you have it saved on your computer. But it's a good way to keep data and have data there, especially if you have students that will participate in class and then they don't upload their work. If you use some of these features in Nearpod, then it's there ready for you to have.
All right, if you could come back to Zoom just for a second, we're gonna watch a quick 4-minute video on exit tickets. And this video is actually from 2015. So we were kind of surprised on the technology that they were using then that kind of relates to now that we can also use. I'm gonna press play, it takes a second. And the video's from Etopia.
There's been a wonderful real-time change in the way we're able to adapt to student needs.
What formative assessment am I using daily so that I can measure whether or not in that class period kids are learning the material? A good exit ticket can tell whether or not a kid has a superficial understanding of the information or has some depth of understanding. And then the next day, the teacher can differentiate their lesson based on student needs. An exit ticket is a formative assessment linked to the objective of the lesson.
Typically, they're short, just a few questions, and they're focused on one particular skill. And we design them ourselves. They're just what I want to know if the students mastered that day in the classroom. It can also be used to kind of anticipate something that you might be working on for the next day's lesson. Do they already know it, or do they know parts of it? Where can you kind of start your lesson?
Some teachers use Pull Anywhere. Some teachers utilize a Google form where kids can enter in their information, and that Google form will then organize the data for the teacher into an Excel spreadsheet. And some teachers just use paper and pencil.
First thing, let's circle number 1, exit ticket. I just want to know key points. What are the best things that your group came up with? Your connections. So historically, a current events connection, a connection you made to. I just wanted to see where each group kind of really got to in their discussion in terms of depth. It lets me see which group, if they're not reaching that level, for example, that I should spend a lot more time talking with them and helping them to develop that, and which groups are working really well independently.
We use the digital exit tickets weekly or daily, depending on the unit.
And we purposely use one, so every 9th grade student, we have that data.
We teach the same course and we co-plan every single day's lesson together. And that gives us a real opportunity to discuss what our data is showing and what do we need to change. We can use exit tickets to focus in on just understanding one small concept. For instance, today's exit ticket asked them to identify what elements were in persuasion, what elements were in argument, and then we gave them examples of pathos, ethos, and logos. They had to identify which of those elements were most prominent. So that gave us an idea of whether or not they could differentiate between the 3.
So let's talk through argument versus persuasion first.
A lot of them understand that logos belongs with argument, but they're also lumping in additional elements. And I'm definitely seeing that the entire group needs to review the differences between argument and persuasion.
Argument has logos only. Today you're going to be using logos, pathos, and ethos for persuasion. It's important just so you notice the difference between them. How about persuasion?
I think that's where we're going to be able to pull out the students that need just a little bit more reteaching.
So clearly, like, the text isn't working for them. So let's do that same visual thing. I think advertisements that they're already familiar with so that they have a place of prior knowledge and context. Logos, pathos, or ethos. We're looking at this beautiful advertisement of Superman. What is the most prominent persuasive element you see here? Let's have our higher level group, since they've demonstrated through this exit ticket that they can definitely identify those three things in what they're reading. Let's move them up to author's purpose. People on the computers in the back, you'll be watching a video and writing a one paragraph response. You'll turn in at the end of class.
When you look around the room, you would think they're all working on the same activity, but in actuality, it's at different levels.
They'll sit down with you, they'll help you learn the material to make sure you get the full grasp of what we're learning in that class.
Using data-driven instruction in the classroom in the form of an exit ticket really allows a teacher to identify each student's strengths and weaknesses as they're walking into your classroom every day. There's no one who's falling through the cracks.
So an interesting thing about, and I believe Sharissa said this before, is that that video was created in 2015, and you can see how the students were using the technology in their classroom even then. And so if we're using a tool kind of like Nearpod, if we go hybrid, then it's a nice tool to keep the class together, moving along through the mini lesson if they're in the classroom or if they're at home. One of the last features we want to show is the collaboration board. On the teacher's side, so if you are in Zoom, it says, would you like to approve student comments before they are posted? This gives you control over if the comments just pop up or if you want to make sure that you view them, and if they're inappropriate, then you do not have to share them. The nice thing is that when you type in your answer as a student, it will show on the teacher's board, and then the teacher can approve it, and it'll post on the collaboration board. And if when it posts on the collaboration board, then it doesn't show the student's name, but it shows their comment, and other students can approve it. So if you look at the board, it has a little heart, and they can like each other's comments, and it's a nice way to have participation, especially if you have that student that doesn't want to share any information. They could type it in and it'll post, and nobody else knows whose comment it was. And you can have some of that class discussion there. You can also use it as a way to check in. You could ask a question and they could put their answers, and you could use it as another form of a quick check as well.
And if some of you are familiar with Jamboard and you love Jamboard, what we have found with the Nearpod one is that if you're using this one, the students cannot delete each other's work. We had an issue at another school where the student went in and deleted everyone's work. Here, they do not have that option. The teacher is in control of pretty much everything. Students cannot see they don't have access to the little trash can feature like we do.
And if you use it as a, if you do use the student paste link instead of the Live plus Zoom, you do have to go into settings and approve so that students can post. Otherwise, the collaboration board won't work on the student paste unless you open that up. In that case, the comments would post without you giving the approval before they're posted, but it is still a feature that can be used in the student pace setting.
So, and just now I posted one that I'm gonna not approve. So here's Sharissa, I just put no. So you would just click that X and it won't post on the board. And it didn't tell me anything as a student, because on my iPad right now, it did not say your comment wasn't accepted. It just didn't post.
Also, students can put pictures if you're okay with pictures. And it's kind of neat.
Yes, I think that's another awesome add-in that they can do. Are there any other questions or anything else you all want to add?
I have a question about this. So this is comparable to the Jamboard.
allows you to post. You could set it up where it shows, it looks like different post-its and stuff like that, but it's the closest thing to Jamboard. If you are comfortable and you want to use Jamboard, you can always add the Jamboard link, and then the students would click on it and go to Jamboard. But this is comparable to Jamboard.
I had a teacher yesterday that I was working with on a team, and she said she was going to do a Valentine's activity where she put the student's name on each collaborative board, and then the rest of the students write something nice about that student. So I thought that was a really cool idea.
So the one thing with Nearpod, Elizabeth asked, are we able to share quick checks easily between accounts? You would have to share screen to actually look at the answers and the data. If you cannot collaborate in the same Nearpod presentation where Sharissa creates a slide and I create a slide at the same time, unless you use the same exact login. It does have that issue with the collaboration. We've actually both collaborated with other teams where we've shared our screen and then discussed what we would do with the slide, what we would add into the slide, and that would be another way to collaborate. But to create the presentation at the same time, you would have to use the same login. But once you create a presentation, you can share the presentation with another teacher. So if you shared screen, talked about it, one teacher created it, and then you wanted to share that presentation, it would put the presentation in their library so they would have their own copy.
And here's how you can do that. So if you look at my screen, these 3 dots right here, share with teachers. So now you can copy the code and then you can send, I have to click save the changes, hold on, because I was editing that yesterday. So here, share with teachers. And now we want the link. So I would send a teacher that I was collaborating with the editable link, especially if you were building that Envisions lesson, because they want to be able to edit it and put their own Envisions link for the video in order for it to work. So then I would just copy it and I would email it in Outlook. What I have found is when I try to email it here, they don't get it and it takes forever. So I just kind of copy that and email it in Outlook.
When you send it to them and you do it where they can edit, does it mess up yours or are they doing their own?
It's theirs now because they added it to their library. So once they add it, it's theirs. They can do whatever they want with it. It doesn't touch yours. But the bad about that is if you guys are collaborating and updating, it's not going to make updates on each other's as well. So there's good and bad about that. One more thing I wanted to mention is, so like if you're creating an intervention lesson, there's tons of different lessons here that you can search. So the other day we were doing something for phonics and I found some really cool lessons here. You just type here and tons of lessons come up where it's an entire Nearpod lesson already created for you.
There will be once the district, at some point they have Nearpod that will be doing a professional development. Tamara and Rose also can help with some of the logistics with Nearpod. If you want, please feel free to email Sharissa and I, and we would love to also come in. We've worked with some other teachers with creating like Envisions lessons using Nearpod and giving feedback and troubleshooting with you. We're more than happy to do that. The first time you start working with Nearpod, it's fun to just go in and kind of play around with the tools, but once you make that connection and understand how to set up the different tools in it or insert other files that you have, the process is really quick. It's just a nice tool to help present and move through and keep your class together. It cuts down with transitions and stuff like that. Well, we thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that we really gave you a good idea of what we can do with Nearpod and how you can use it. Teachers that have used it that we've worked with are loving it. It's changed the engagement in their classrooms. We've had success with first graders being able to use it without any problems. And so it's really, it's a neat tool.
Well, thank you guys for coming today. Don't forget, we're just like an email away. So if you guys need any additional support.